Hello. Today I'm going to be doing a short lesson on what is multiple intelligences, how is it used in the classroom, how can it be utilized, and why is it important. So why don't we kind of get started with today's topic. So what are multiple intelligences and how do they affect learning? Well, over the past few decades, research in the field of learning has led to the discovery of what is called the theory of multiple intelligences. In short, this theory states that each person has different ways of learning and different intelligences they use in their daily lives. This theory, and we see it a lot, I think, in differentiation of instruction in classrooms today, kind of goes into the idea that different kids learn better in different ways. There are different strengths, different weaknesses, and multiple intelligences is just the general idea that we each have a certain strength in different areas of how we actually learn. And while some can learn very well in a linguistically based environment, like reading and writing, others are better taught through mathematical logic-based learning. Still others benefit most from body kinesthetic intelligence, which is learning by doing with the hands. And I think that this has become more popularized, at least from what I've seen growing up, where I don't remember a lot of kinesthetic lessons. But now when I look at classrooms, I'm inside a classroom or I'm observing other classrooms, it seems like it's become very popularized. Each person possesses each intelligence to an extent, but there is always a primary or more dominant intelligence. The work of multiple intelligences began in the early 1980s with Howard Gardner, and the research continues. Now, Gardner proposed that there are 8 intelligences. Sometimes it's listed as 9, but we'll be analyzing the primary 8 today. His theory basically shows that students have different areas of strength in how they learn and in learning styles, and encourages these students to use their strengths and talents to both learn and interact with the content material. And as we'll look at towards the end of the lesson, it can also help propel students towards certain careers, which makes sense because these strengths naturally flow into certain career paths, as we'll look at now. As you see, these are the primary 8, the visual spatial, linguistic verbal, interpersonal, logical mathematical, musical, bodily kinesthetic, and the naturalistic. And if you just look at the picture and have an idea of what they're talking about, it becomes kind of apparent what career paths these naturally flow into on their own anyway. But we'll quickly take a look at each one. And we first look at the visual spatial intelligence. People who are strong at visualizing things, maybe they look at maps, charts, videos, and pictures very well. This is often when I'm doing my lessons for history, I try to do a lot of visual spatial intelligence type learning by having a lot of maps, analyzing maps first, rather than just giving notes, because I think that having the visual kind of lends itself to learning anyway, and kind of strengthens the information. And as you can see, it has charts and different pictures. People with this intelligence can read and write for enjoyment, good at putting things together, and especially interpret picture graphs and charts very well. So that's the first one. The second one is linguistic verbal intelligence. This is for people who are strong in linguistic verbal intelligence, are able to use words well, both when writing and speaking. They're typically good at writing stories, memorizing information, and reading. As you can see on here, they're very good at remembering written and spoken information. They're good at debates and speeches. They can explain things well. A lot of note-taking, as you can see in the top right, is a primary strength of these types of students. So we look at the third one now, and this one's kind of obvious. Logical mathematical intelligence. People who are strong in logical mathematical intelligence are good at reasoning, recognizing patterns, and logically analyzing problems. They tend to think conceptually about numbers, relationships, and patterns. They have excellent problem-solving skills, which of course is very pertinent in math itself. They enjoy thinking about abstract ideas. They like conducting scientific experiments, and they can solve complex computations. So this is the maths and sciences field. As you can see on the right-hand side, different orders of operation, mathematical operations. This is a key strength in any field relegated to it. For the fourth one, as we reach the halfway point, we look at what is my personal favorite, bodily kinesthetic intelligence. And this works particularly well with younger kids, I think. It's for those who are good at body movement, performing actions, and physical control. People who are strong in this area tend to have excellent hand-eye coordination and dexterity. So this is for people who are good at dancing and sports, enjoy creating things with their hands, have excellent physical coordination, and remember by doing rather than hearing or seeing. And I think that anytime you can make a lesson where students are able to take the material and actually do something with it kinesthetically, I think that's where memorization typically is higher. So if they can kind of act with the material, which I think works pretty well for history, whether they can kind of, have some more direct control over the material itself, use it in some way, use a bunch of hands-on materials, I think is a pretty strong bodily kinesthetic way of showing off this intelligence, and that's why I like it so much. I do think it does a really strong job of kind of leading itself to memorization and mastery of the material. It works really well for English as well, depending on the activity, memorizing words and things like that. So we look at musical intelligence, and kind of obvious, but it's good for students who think in patterns, rhymes, and sounds. They have a strong appreciation for music and are often good at musical composition and performance. So whether they enjoy singing and playing instruments, recognizing musical patterns and tones, maybe remembering songs and melodies. I know a lot of songs I had growing up dealt with math, and there were little melodies to kind of help you learn your 12 times tables. Stuff like that. So I think that melodies really work well with memorizing information. So that's something that goes across all disciplines. And this is why it works so well for recognizing musical patterns and tones and songs and melodies, looking at rhymes, which of course lends itself to English. So this is a multiple intelligence that really spreads across many different disciplines. So I think this is a strong one as well. You also have the interpersonal intelligence. This is for people who are good at understanding and interacting with others. These individuals are skilled at assessing the emotions, motivations, desires, and intentions of those around them. Whether it's through communication or nonverbal communication, they can see situations from different perspectives and create positive relations with others. So this is useful for a lot of the group work that has become very commonplace in classrooms today, as well as some presentations, which some students really seem to shine at too. So this is, I think, becoming more popularized because I remember growing up, most of the classroom model was just the teacher lecturing, and there wasn't a lot of group work. Whereas now it seems like it's really lent itself to going the opposite way. So I think that interpersonal intelligence is more important than ever. Whereas maybe a few decades ago or longer, it didn't really seem to matter as much. But now I think that because of the world we live in and working together is so crucially important, this is a skill that is being taught a lot more in classrooms. So I think this is one that's really important now. And of course, we also look at intrapersonal intelligence. This is good for students who are good at being aware of their own emotional states, feelings, and motivations. They tend to enjoy self-reflection and analysis, exploring relationships with others, and assessing their own strengths. So this is when a student can look at themselves and kind of analyze and figure out what they are good at. And they understand the basis for their own motivations and feelings and their own ideas and theories and opinions. And finally, we look at the naturalistic intelligence, which is the most recent addition to Gardner's theory. And according to the theory, individuals who are in this type of intelligence are more in tune with nature. If they have a green thumb, they're often interested in nurturing, exploring the environment, and learning about other species. So we look at things like botany, biology, and zoology. Maybe they enjoy camping, gardening, hiking, and exploring the outdoors. But this is I think this is a kind of interesting one. This is one that seems, in my opinion, to be so different from the others because it is so specific to those fields. And perhaps so too is the mathematical one. But that one kind of goes into orders of operations and etc., which does kind of go across disciplines, whereas I find this intelligence to be very specific to nature itself. So we're going to look at the last slide on here, which is careers by intelligence. As I said before, each of the intelligences kind of lends themselves into a specific field. So if it's for spatial, it might be an artist or an architect. If it's bodily kinesthetic, perhaps it's an athlete, an actor, a police officer. For musical, obviously something with music. For linguistic, it could be journalism or politics. Naturalistic, of course, as I previously said, is tied very directly to it. So you could be looking at agriculture or biology. Logical mathematical, obviously, kind of goes into mathematics, but as we often see with mathematics, it kind of blends itself into engineering as well. Interpersonal could be counselors and salespeople, and finally, interpersonal typically has more of a, I think, something working by oneself, self-motivation, as it says. So perhaps researching, writing, perhaps some entrepreneurship as well. So that is my little lesson here on multiple intelligences. We covered what they are, what they specifically deal with, how they can be used in the classroom, and additionally, what the career paths are for each of them. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and thank you for sticking with me today.